welcome to another Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, CaptainLogun, and we've got a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today, so tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week, we're going to be talking about all of the information that you guys sent in to me, your stories, your feedback, all of that. Plus, there is a ton of news to go over with Sea of Thieves and season's greetings, I guess. All that and more in this week's episode of Keelhauled Podcast. All right, pirates, welcome to the podcast. I love you guys all so much, but I have to give a shout out to the patrons. They are the ones that are directly supporting the podcast and me, making sure that my costs are covered and just supporting me as a content creator. You know, I'm making content, and if you find value in that, it is very much appreciated to those of the patrons that have subscribed at the Crow's Nest or higher tier. There's 3 tiers. There's Sailor, Crow's Nest, and Captain. 3, 5, and 10 as far as the tier goes. 10 gets you access to the Discord server where you can direct talk to me. I will be very attentive to anyone in that channel to make sure that I'm giving them my attention. The Crow's Nest gets you the shout outs on the podcast, and the Sailor gets you the ad-free content. So if you just want the ad-free stuff, you can always sign up as a Sailor and get that as well. The captains obviously get everything below that and included as well. So I wanted to give a shout out to Chateau Neuf, Regis Stella, El Jefe Esteban, Big Bad Pad, CJ Super Pack, and as well as Cosmic Johnson for subscribing to the Patreon. They get the shout outs, they get the recognition, they are supporting me. You guys also support me, but they wanted to make sure that they are helping directly support the costs of the podcast. And that means a lot to me. So thank you guys so much for doing that. I really appreciate your support. I hope this finds you well. Enjoy and happy hunting. Thanks for all you do. Kind regards, Windsor Chris. From the Journal of Mr. Windsor, detailing an adventure had by the author and Mr. Swade. Cargo runs in the bloody roar. Not sure the risk is worth the reward, Mr. Windsor. Mr. Swade was not what you'd call a cautious sort. He was always quite willing to throw said caution into the salty wind and go forth bloody into the breach. I glanced upward to the volcanic structure adjacent to Brian's inadvisably placed bazaar as we crept by in our trusty sloop. Even through the thick fog, it glowed an angry orange, the magma oozing from every crevice and then hissing as it met the sea. Mr. Swade's attention, however, had moved northward towards Molten Sun's fortress. Skellies are home, clattering about, he said, adjusting his spyglass. By then, I'd brought our sloop to the dock of Brian's Bazaar, losing just a little paint from its hull as we rubbed close to the planks. I tossed ropes over, cinched them tight, and then hopped off with the first of 5 crates of the finest silk. Merrick's bony sister shot a look that may as well have been daggers.
You're scaring the fish, you daft plonker!
I flashed her my most disarming smile. She spit, then shrugged, then turned her attention back to fishing. Mr. Swade stood atop the canopy of the sloop, lowering his spyglass, and flashed a smile of his own. Brigantines at the fortress. A reaper brigantine. And he disappeared below deck for a moment or two, presumably for a few salted fish from the barrels and a selection of tropical fruits. The next I saw him topside, rummaging for blunderbombs. Nasty business, those, particularly in the hands of Mr. Swade. If you don't mind, I'm off, he said, and dove into the water a second or so before I actually assented. That's fine. Be care, I said. He was already clear a little of the seapost and swimming with the efficiency of a shark that had missed his last meal. Your man's about to start some trouble, Brian asked as I hoisted the last of the silk crates onto his bench. I sighed, feigned exasperation, purposefully avoiding the question. Matilda says the silk cost dear, as it came from the shores. You'll need to double the price to cover the investment. I'd best be off, I added, thinking Mr. Swade can well handle himself, even 1 versus 3, but even the ferryman's patience could be stretched too thin if you abused yourself of the privilege. I could hear dear Merrick's sister hurling invectives at me as her line snapped from the little wake caused by my departing vessel.
You preeling bellend! I will tear off your head. I swear I will, and fight it to Margaret.
There were rumors, no doubt, started by Merrick's sister herself, that she had an ancient terror for a pet, and the pet's name was Margaret. No one believed it, of course, but no one challenged her on the presumed fabrication of having tamed a megalodon. Not to her face, at any rate. The fog had thickened further since Mr. Swade had opted to swim the distance, and the beacon above the fortress had since been snuffed, indicating the Skellies had lost the battle and the triumphant brigantine crew would be loading up the spoils. I relied heavily on my compass, relative speed, and the last sighted position of the Reaper's brigantine to guide my way through the soup. I coasted in slowly, quarter sail, and lined my starboard arsenal at the brigantine's aft end, with a good angle toward the bow. As I raised the sailcloth fully, I caught sight of Mr. Swade climbing the brigantine's ladder. He had boarded stealthily and had made his way below deck. In short order, he re-emerged topside, wiping the blood from his cutlass on the side of his leg before sheathing it. He held up his index finger, right one that was, and then pointed in the direction of the fortress with his left hand before adding the right middle to the right index, indicating 2 were merely away from the ship, probably collecting the remainder of the hard-earned loot. The deck of the brigantine already shone with treasure, including a Reaper's bounty chest, an assortment of skulls separated from the bodies of skeletons that donated them, but still glowing with whatever foul magic was used to animate them. Mr. Swade had scarcely dived from that deck before I began laying into it with cannonball after cannonball, opening holes in their hulls from stem to stern. This brought the remaining crew rushing to bring succor to their vessel and ambushed crewmate. I turned the cannon toward the beach and volleyed all manner of curses their way. Magical venom, involuntary grog, forced jigs. They doubled over in pain, vomited, and danced at my whim. One curse after the other as they watched their helpless crewmate get sent for the second time to the ferry by the cutlass of the patient Mr. Swade. He laughed with abandon as he met the other 2 on the beach, toying with them, daring them to attack. As he crossed swords with the first, the second approached him from behind. I readied my eye of reach to provide cover, but it was not needed. Mr. Swade parried the first man back, turned, and put a blunderbuss to the forehead of the second man, and pulled the trigger. As his soul wafted upward, Mr. Swade turned his attention to the first man. Done toying with him, he dispatched him with his cutlass, with every bit of fluid grace a dancer might possess. The brigantine had since slipped into its watery grave, and the booty, the burning fortress, began to bob on the surface, payment for our exploits. As I put the harpoon to use, getting the treasure aboard, Mr. Swade meandered about in the shallows, on the off chance that 1 or 2 or all of the Reaper brigantine crew might be sent back to us once more. I signaled Mr. Swade from the boat using their emissary flag to do so. He laughed and shouted, "That's one emissary that let their company down." Indeed they had. Next up, we have a rowboat story. I asked about your rowboat stories to see how yours had come along compared to some of the ones that we'd had in the past in last episode. And Flacco wrote into the questions and feedback section. You can write it into the First Mates log, wherever you guys want to put it. You're more than welcome to put it. They wrote in and says, "For my rowboat story, me and my brig crew were at a Fort of the Damned, tucking. However, we were discovered and decided to take by force. We brought our ship and sunk one ship doing it. A sloop remained and mostly just distracted us until their brig friend came back. We knew we couldn't defeat both ships in open water, so we all snuck over to the island and let our ship sink. My crewmates went to the island to wait for the vault to open. When I went to the enemy sloop, and once they had opened the vault, 4 or 5 of them rushed into the vault, and fortunately, they hadn't calculated how possible it was that we were still there. We blew the kegs and I brought the rowboat over to pick up my crewmates who had the chest of legends. My third crewmate grabbed our new ship, which had respawned far away. It was then up to me to row the Athena chest from Fort of the Damned almost to Golden Sands. And then we finally my ship arrived. That's my rowboat story. That's insane. From Fort of the Damned to the Golden Sands outpost. That is one heck of a run. So congrats to you. That's a great story. I'm glad you guys managed to get it. And man, you always want to blow the kegs before you go in. I don't know anyone that doesn't. It seems like a huge risk to me to not actually blow those kegs. So congrats. Next up on today's docket, let's hear from the dog. The dog writes in and says, the songs of the seas. It's been a while since I've written in, but you told us to write in the last episode, so I did. I was wondering, what's your favorite piece of music from Sea of Thieves? It has such a great soundtrack, and it's a hard decision, but I would say my favorites are Who Shall Not Be Returning, the boss wave music for both the Skeleton and Ghost fleets, as well as We Shall Sail Together, quote unquote, of course. Keep up the great work and stay safe from Didog. Didog, thanks for writing in. I did ask and you did write in, and I appreciate that. It's a tough one for me, but as I'm looking at what's available just on Spotify, I have to go with Maiden's Voyage. I really do. It's just the first song I think of when I think Sea of Thieves. And it's one of those things where when you hear it, it has an entire adventure built into 2.5 minutes. It's amazing. And I absolutely love just the way it kind of like plinks along with the different instruments. You hear the hurdy-gurdies, you hear the bones rattling, you get that string and music in there, and it's so good. It's just so full of life. And every time I hear it, it gets me like invigorated. I'm just like, yeah, let's go sailing. Let's go out on the seas. Let's see what's out there and what we're going to run into tonight. And I have to go with that one. All of these songs are absolutely amazing. So it's impossible for anyone to really say like they have, just one favorite. But if I had to pick, it would definitely have to be Maiden Voyage. All right. Next, I wanted to address some of the feedback that I got with Caleb, who was on the show previously. He wrote in and said, I'm surprised you didn't include Lost Treasures, but did include Fate of the Damned. Fate of the Damned added no persistent activity, only a few new cosmetics. At least Lost Treasures added stuff that persisted, like tall tale checkpoints and the event systems. I actually forgot about those, and I have a hard time still kind of including Lost Treasures, but I do see your point. So I asked Caleb what he would rank them if he was given the opportunity. So he wrote in, he says, first off, Ships of Fortune. The size of this update rivaled the anniversary update. So much fun to progress through the companies again. Arena mode update, nice to get some attention to Arena since it often feels forgotten, and probably will be now that we have a little more information about what's going on. And I'll get to that hopefully in this episode, if not next, because I did say I was going to make sure that you guys came first, even if we got big news, and lots more, but mostly cats. And that's true. We did get cats and Ships of Fortune, and that does make that update probably one of the best ever. Number 2, he wrote it and says, Haunted Shores. Ghost ship encounters are a lot of fun. Probably my favorite world encounter to encounter PvP while doing, plus the shanty rework. And yeah, it was really nice to have the shanty choices there. Number 3 was Ashen Winds, another fun world event. Cool that its rewards is a weapon that you can use against others. And he's referring to the flaming skull that you get after you defeat one of the Ashen Lords. And then Vault of the Ancients. Vaults are okay, but I find them not as fun as the above entries. And then last, Lost Treasures. Addition of Event Hub, while promising, has been hurt by inconsistency in the way it's been used, in my honest opinion. Tall Tale checkpoints are a nice quality of life update. Not since Hunter's Call has there been something that will let you play for a very short play session and make progress towards something. And then he wrote in a little bit after this and says, I take back what I said about Fort of the Damned. While I did the Fate of the Damned event to be lacking, the update did finally add Devil's Roar Vaults, which is awesome. It's quote unquote fixed the bug for mysterious notes, or realistically actually adding them, and added the events hub into the game, as well as Shark Hunter ship parts. He also wrote in and says, I forgot about Cruise of Rage and Legends of the Sea, which technically I did too. When I put this in and I was ranking the updates to date, I was not taking into account the first few months of the actual year. I was taking into account since the anniversary. So that was my bad on that one. He says, I forgot about Cruise of Rage and Legends of the Sea. Legends of the Sea was a cool way to reveal all the Easter eggs in the game, -1. I put that last bit in there. Halo MCC does something similar where all the Easter eggs are achievements, so it adds a bit of pomp and circumstance as well as motivation to finding them. Unfortunately, it's a one and done kind of thing, so it doesn't make sense. Make the top 5 list. Cruise of Rage added a new cursed chest and a particularly interesting one at that. Unfortunately, its effect is easy to mitigate by putting it on top of or the tip of your boat, and is rare to find right now. You think they'd make it wash up on the shores like the other cursed chests because of this? What it added rarely contributes to current gameplay. At the time of the update, it was fun. However, as you know, you had a chance of encountering players since Voyages. It added. Wait, let me read this again. As you knew, you had a chance. As you knew, you had a high chance of encountering players since the voyage. It added, brought everyone to the same islands. Not since the Reaper's voyages did you have that kind of certain fun. And I would agree. I honestly think that those 2 updates were really good. I loved seeing the Legends of the Sea. I'm hoping that in the future I'll get included in that. At the moment, I think I'm actually the only one that isn't included on that list, which is kind of a bummer. But then again, finding a skeleton with my name on it is harder than anything I've done in this game. So hopefully I'll have a chance to see it or be included. I would love that. It'd be nice to feel like I can have a set way of actually summoning my skeleton to get to actually show my wife. That'd be cool. But moving on, all good points. He was actually the only person that came in with feedback for what you guys would rank them. And I do have to agree. I think he made some really, really fair points about some of the stuff that came in. I think I just tend to prefer the Fate of the Damned for the involvement of a persistent event that we've had year and year and year. It's always added a little bit different as opposed to staying like a stagnant event that we had. And similarly, I'm hoping that something will be done with the December update to kind of change up how it is going to be implemented compared to how it was last year with the gift system. So that if we get gifts, then it's not just taking them to the Reaper's hideout, since that is no longer the normal environment that it was when we actually just had the beach with a bunch of stones and some planks and the masked stranger with a table. So we'll have to see how things go. This could be a really interesting way that they change up the normal event that we would come to expect with the gift systems. And if you haven't been playing the game during December when they do the holiday event, you get gifts. You get voyages to go dig up gifts, or you get gifts from the forts. You might have actually seen these, and you get credit for turning them in when someone else turns them in, not when you turn them in. You have to turn some in anyway, but if they're either stolen, then you're giving someone else credit so that they will earn rewards. And we don't necessarily know what the rewards are going to be this year. There's strong suggestion that it might be the same rewards as last year, but we'll have to see if anything new comes out of this upcoming update. And with that, I think it's good enough time as any to jump into the actual news, because there's a lot, and I have some feedback on that as well as my own thoughts. So let's get into it. All right, pirates. So you guys usually come here for news, usually opinions, but most of the time it's usually news. And we got that. We had a new Sea of Thieves news update back on December 2nd. If you haven't watched it, I will have a link in the show notes, but there is a ton of stuff to go over. First and foremost, let's talk about what Joe Neat was talking about in the front of the video. If you haven't watched this, they're back at the studio. Now, I don't know if all of them are back at the studio, but they were able to record this back at the Barns in Twycross. It was great to see this. It was really warming to see that things feel like they might be getting a little bit closer to normal as we get closer and closer into next year. Hopefully, as things calm down and things get a little bit safer for people. I really love this, and I'm happy to say that I look forward to more of these being in here from the actual studio itself. He mostly went over kind of how 2020's been and talked about some of the interesting things. There are 15 million players that have played Sea of Thieves now, and the balance between Xbox and PC is now about 50%. Before it had been heavily skewed to PC or to Xbox. So it was nice to see that as a result of the Steam launch, it feels like PC players have jumped on Sea of Thieves more and are now about even with the number of Xbox players. Really cool to kind of find out some of those numbers. You know, we don't typically get that kind of analytics from studios, but it was nice that Joe was willing to share those details. And for good cause, because we're moving into the new year. They've got a huge new plan. And let's just say they jumped over to Mike Chapman, who I miss seeing his face. It's such a great, it's such a great way to kind of showcase what's coming to the game. You know, Mike is the creative director for Sea of Thieves. Everything that we have tends to come from his mind, as well as others at the studio. And he kind of has that yay or nay on where the game is going to go. And it's it's great to see that he's kind of back here telling us kind of what we're going to be dealing with in the coming year. So season's greetings. We're going to be getting a whole new way of dealing with Sea of Thieves in January. And January starts seasons. So that's why they're greeting us, because it's seasons and it's not a reference to the holidays at all. And that's about as clever as I can get. So I don't know what to tell you guys. So seasons are coming. There's a free and a paid version. I'll get into the paid version in a bit, but at the beginning of the season, there's going to be a new piece of content. They haven't said what or how it's going to be, but there will be kind of a new bit of content that comes in with the season at the beginning of that 3-month times. Alongside that new content, they're going to be having regular live events each month. And live events are more akin to the Fate of the Damned as opposed to new content, which I would more closely associate with actual tall tales. And we'll kind of find out like how that actually balances out. But they're planning on also doing quality of life patches as well as Emporium updates and Twitch drops. So pretty much kind of what they have been doing. Nothing too new there, except that now we have a 3-month cycle as far as when content kind of comes out on top of live events. And I'm excited for this because it feels how things were when we were in our first year. We had the big drops of content for the big expansions to the world and to the voyages and to the atmosphere of the world. And then we had regular build rat stuff going on in between. And it feels like it's taken some time, but they've kind of worked out how to build a live game and have it have content throughout that is repeatable, but fresh content as well too, stuff that you're willing to do over and over and over again that's entertaining and fun, kind of like Treasure Vaults or Ashen Winds, but you're getting new content, similar to the Ashen Winds where you had a whole new boss brought in with a whole new slew of spells and things like that. And with the season, you can imagine there is a battle pass, and it works out that there is a free version. That is the version that's just going to be in the game. Chapman references renown as you're leveling up or increasing your renown with the through the pass. And it's going to be tier or levels 1 through 100. So this feels pretty normal. It feels really, really kind of on par with what you would expect from most other battle passes. And I'm okay with that because I understand the system, I understand the benefits. And at first, I'll be honest that I was not too keen on Sea of Thieves moving to a season pass system, just purely based on the idea that this is a paid game. It's not a free game to play, but it is included in Game Pass. So it just depends on how you value that. But you still have to purchase the game one way or another. It's not something that you can download for free. Unlike an Apex Legends or a Fortnite where you can download it and start playing right away, this is going to be a game that you still have to purchase, similar to Call of Duty. or similar to Destiny 2. These are games that you typically have to spend money on, and they offer a season pass as well as a store to be able to purchase things as well. And there's generally this system is typically okay with most people. Most people are generally okay with this because at the end of the day, you have a lot of agency on how you want to acquire cosmetics if that's something you want to acquire. And the renown, the levels, the 100 levels, gives you the ability to actually decide if you want to spend time leveling that up. And if you want to get the rewards for that through natural progression of the game. Now, this is where it was interesting to listen to Mike talk about how you actually earn renown. He went through it pretty quick, and there's not too many details until we actually see this, but progressing through your renown will involve all aspects of Sea of Thieves, adventuring. So I imagine going out and doing things out in the world, exploration, looking for certain things out on islands, or trying to discover like wall paintings or statues, things like that. Combat, actually being able to do combat. And I imagine combat is probably more focused around the PvP aspect of that, where you would actually want to get into ship battles, things like that. I imagine that adventuring probably encompasses dealing with skeletons and krakens and megalodons, and that is the quote unquote adventure aspect of the game. You also have unique experiences. So this is where it kind of makes me think, in the actual video, they had B-roll footage of this, and the B-roll actually shows you running up to a bunch of skeletons with kegs and blowing them up. And that kind of makes me think of the original Bilge Rat Adventures, where the way that you were actually completing the commendations was through killing skeletons through a specific means. And that was a really great way to enjoy content. You know, we had a lot of fun with that. So I can imagine that's kind of how some of the unique experiences, instead of something that's very straightforward as far as just going to a certain island, looking for a simple thing, checking out that simple thing, or digging up a certain thing and progressing that way. But they did kind of confirm that by stating that they're going to be celebrating existing content. And that is where I feel like they're going to be running into a situation where it will be kind of like the Summer of Sea of Thieves, where some of the stuff is easy. You'll kind of do it as you go along, but some of the things will require you to do certain things. And that's fine. Honestly, the way I've kind of come down on it is I feel like that is normal in what we expect from playing Sea of Thieves. You're going to be doing things that you normally run into. The biggest trouble is generally when it comes down to actually having alliances. Alliances tend to be the toughest thing for us to try and find people who are willing to work together to be able to do stuff. And if you don't believe me, let's talk about gifts later on. We'll kind of get back into that. And I'm okay with this. I think that this is something that will appeal to people who don't feel like they want to spend $40 in the Pirate Emporium every month to collect everything. If they'd rather spend a smaller amount of money to be able to earn this through time, as opposed to actually paying for everything. And that's kind of the point, right? Like, the goal of this is to give you cosmetics that are going to be unique rewards. Chapman actually kind of goes into the idea that the rewards that you're going to get are going to be new stuff for your pirate and for your ship, but they also have rewards specifically for those that are pirate legend as well too. So they're trying to take into account that they realize a lot of people are pirate legend. Pirate legend was always kind of touted as this end game goal for us. I think that desire for people to think of pirate legend as an end game has definitely faded. And if it hasn't, you really need to let it go at this point, because they're not going to cater as heavily to the pirate legends as the larger group of people that aren't pirate legends. And you may be thinking, well, Logan, how many pirate legends are there? Or, how many people aren't pirate legends nowadays? A lot of people. A lot of people have played the game a little bit. They like it. They progressed, into the 20s or 30s, and then they swapped games for something else. This is a good way for them to see a carrot at the end of the stick and think, I want that. but I can't get that until I hit Pirate Legend. And this is another reason for them to hit Pirate Legend. This isn't a reward for Pirate Legends because you're already Pirate Legend. This is something to get people to get to Pirate Legend. Think of it like that, and not necessarily something that's just for the Pirate Legends. With the season pass and working your way through the Renown, they are offering a paid version of the season as well. This falls in line with just about every battle pass that's out there in existence. There's a free tier, there's a paid tier, and the paid tier is going to have unique rewards, probably content that is specifically just for the season, as well as Emporium content. So if there's something in the Emporium that you see and you want, chances are, if you hold off, it may show up in a season. And this is very similar to what it's like for Destiny. I play a lot of Destiny 2 now. The season pass gives me these, what they call pneumatic engrams. These engrams are just basically tokens to get an item from the paid store. Once I open the engram, it is a random roll for anything from the last 4 years that I don't have. And that's probably going to be, probably won't be anything close to that. If I imagine they'll probably just have like certain things at certain tiers instead of giving you like a random thing, because that's kind of something that Rare does not do. They've been very clear that they don't want people to feel like they have to worry about randomly getting something outside of the value of a chest when it comes to cosmetics. They don't want cosmetics to be mysterious in how you get them. They want to be very clear on how you get them and how you earn them, et cetera, et cetera. You know what you're getting for when you pay for it. And just like with the other games that I've played in the past, or I've had game passes or battle passes, plunder passes, whatever you want to call them, season passes, it depends on the value of the actual cosmetics. Do I see what's in there, and do I think that it's great? If I do, then I'll buy the pass and I'll make sure that I work towards the 100 levels through the 3 months. Destiny, I'm almost finished up with my season pass, and it's only a month in, but I'm playing that on par with Sea of Thieves at this point. So I'm playing Sea of Thieves. I'm still playing more of. We found out how many hours we're playing in Sea of Thieves this year so far to date, and I'm still playing more Sea of Thieves than I am Destiny 2. But they're getting close to. I was definitely a lot heavier with Sea of Thieves at the beginning of the year and Destiny at the end of the year when I actually learned how to play. But I'm curious to know how many hours you guys have played. If you want to share that, feel free. Getting back to the season pass, that's generally it. It seems pretty straightforward. This is kind of I think the end game, the end result of the last 3 years of them working out. Do we release an expansion? Do we put in events specifically for holidays? And then do we have mercenary voyages or what do we call them? Build red adventures in between. This is going to be a way to kind of unify all of that. You know, you have a renown every 3 months. You level up your renown and you just kind of go through it like that. Oh, there, pirates. This week, I wanted to touch on not Green Man Gaming because, believe it or not, I took a look at some of the deals and I didn't really see anything that was all that exciting. So I wanted to skip that and push you guys over to Audible Books or audiobooks.com. They are a great way if you love listening to books like I do. I love listening to books at work. I generally go through at least a couple books a month if I can. And actually, that's because I've been building up. But generally, I get at least 1 credit a month, and that credit typically goes to something that I already have. I think I've got a couple backed up right now. But with audiobooks.com, you get 3 audiobooks for free, and this can include 2 VIP books. If you go to the link in the show notes under sponsors, you're going to see audiobooks.com. Click the link, check it out. Pick out 3 books. And in fact, if you don't know, you may not know this, but Ready Player One has a sequel. Ernest Cline wrote Ready Player 2. I've already listened to it. In fact, it took me a couple days to get through it all. And I am very surprised at how they went. It was an interesting read. I loved being able to revisit the characters, and it was surprising how the story ended up going after that. If you guys have read this and want to talk about it, feel free to hit me up. But head over to audiobooks.com, get your 3 books. Let me know what you think of Ready Player 2. All right, next up on today's docket, I did have a couple things that I wanted to jump onto. In addition to explaining Renown and the season pass and the plunder pass for the beginning of January, Chapman also said that with that is coming a new voyage to Merchant Alliance, which is going to be, I don't think they actually put a name to it. I'm struggling to remember if they actually had a name. I don't think they had a name yet, but they're adding a new Merchant Alliance voyage, which is right in line with what I expected back in the day when we were talking about the treasure vaults, as well as the skeleton fleet voyages that have been added to the Gold Hoarders and to the Order of Souls. This is going to cause you to go out and hunt down for some sort of lost treasure in a shipwreck. It's going to be very akin to how, you kind of play detective with the map and you have to go out and search for it. I love the idea that they are expanding what each trade company does, because when the game first started, the game didn't have very much in the way of variance in quests. Order of Souls was go kill skeletons. Merchant Alliance was go get animals. And then half a year later, it was like go deliver crates of supplies and goods. Now that they have another option for you to pick up voyages, I really want to speak to Rare specifically and the engineers in working out a way to unlock the number of voyages you can carry and expand it. 3 base trade company voyages is now impossible to stack up multiple ones of the thing. Like there should be just an unlimited number of voyages that you can purchase from the Order Souls. If I want to pick up 3 skeleton fleet voyages, let me have that option. Don't restrict me to picking up just one, going out and doing it, and then having to hope for either a crewmate to be there to actually help grab another one if they have availability for one. Most of the time, most people have a bunch of voyages. They can't pick up any of the old voyages. They have a bunch of stuff that they were hanging on to. Now, granted, Rare has definitely walked back, giving everyone a ton of mercenary voyages and a ton of Bildrad adventure voyages and a bunch of gilded, they've kind of walked that back a little bit, but they really need to take into account the fact that people are holding on to voyages for years at this point and just expand the availability for people to purchase voyages if they already have 3 from the traditional trading companies. But to see that we are getting a new Merchant Alliance voyage and that it's going to be an active one that's out there where you're actually hunting for something as opposed to just picking up animals or picking up crates and delivering them, it's a lot more interesting. It's a lot more action oriented, where you're going to have to find out, like, what shipwreck is it? Is there a Reaper's chest there? What is this treasure that we're going out and looking for? And it's going to bring a little more life and longevity to the Merchant Alliance, something that is, as most people generally don't tend to do by choice, because they just don't have fun hunting down animals, which die very easily now, or trying to get cargo crates from one place to another without them getting damaged as a result of all the numerous world events that are out there that are willing to try and damage your stuff on top of other players. And I'm really happy to see this. The other bit of news that we found out, thanks to Joe Neat, is that Arena is dead. DED dead. They are deciding at this point that they don't want to allocate any more resources to furthering Arena. And for the Arena hounds out there, I'm going to pour one out for you, because I am so sorry that they are doing the thing that I wanted them to do. They aren't deleting it. They aren't just outright deleting it, but there's no more Arena development. And to be perfectly honest, I think I understand why. They have stated that they feel like Arena's in a good place where it is, that they're happy with how the session-based games are working. I don't think too many people really like the TDM style of meta that is currently in there. I think what's really going on is that the lead person that was working on Arena had left the studio, and the third party company that was working on Arena has been pushed to do something else. I don't think that team is working on Arena anymore, without any significant changes since the last update. Or not the last update, but Ships of Fortune. They really haven't found anything that really makes Arena interesting. Most people typically play in adventure, and that's where you can get a little bit of everything, which is kind of the point. You have a lot of action, and then a lot of sitting around in the Sea Dog Tavern, and then you have a lot of action and a lot more time spent sitting in the Sea Dog Tavern, and that is fine if there was a ranked based matchmaking where players were actually going to be matched up against other people who are of their skill. I know some people don't like that, like in Call of Duty. For some reason, they just like going in and stomping on people who are much lower than them as skill wise. But I don't even know. I don't even understand that whole desire there. But in competitive gaming, I imagine you probably want to be around people that are your level so that you can improve instead of just feeling good about yourself and stomping on people that are way less skilled than you. But if I wanted to do that, I'd go play something else. I'd go play Destiny, which kind of maybe is why I like playing Destiny. But at least I know what game I'm going to be playing if I want that. I'm not going to get on the devs. Why am I getting on this tangent? Get off this tangent. Arena is kind of it. And if you are looking to get those cosmetics, the Sea Dog stuff, I would do that as soon as you can. Because I imagine that some people will play this mode at a certain point, but once people kind of learn that not much development, if any at all, is going to be put towards that mode from now on, chances are people are going to drop off of that and go hunting in adventure, which is going to bring a lot more of a threat to the seas. And that's going to be one of those things where if you were happy that the bloodthirsty pirates are mostly in Arena and you're playing on Xbox and that is a concern of yours, I would highly push you to jump onto the Xbox only servers. But even that's going to be a little touch and go nowadays, because with the Xbox Series X and S, the load times are incredibly fast. So expect to get back on your ship pretty quickly and not have to worry too much about load times anymore. That's not too big of a thing as much at this point. And I don't know if I don't ever see us getting a transition from the original Xbox One to just Xbox Series systems. But if you can, definitely would recommend the Series X or S. In fact, I actually, to be honest, I have to send in my Xbox Series X at some point because the Wi-Fi connection on this device is faltering. It cannot hold connection just in the small apartment that I have. So I reached out to them. Apparently it's a known issue. Apparently this is something that other people are having trouble with as far as Wi-Fi connectivity, and it drops out. And so yeah, talked to the guy. He said that I had to reset my system from the get-go and play some games, and he'd call me back tomorrow, but I don't know if I'm going to have any dropouts by then to be able to report. So we'll have to see how that goes. But that's a Logan story for you guys. I don't know how you guys are dealing with your Xboxes. Hopefully you haven't had any problems like I've been running into. This is actually the only problem I've actually had. So we'll have to see. The last thing that I think was in the update that was worth jumping into deals with the Festival of Giving that is starting on the 9th, which is in 2 days. Oh my God, it's in 2 days. And I can't believe they're doing this. I cannot believe they're doing the Festival of Giving on the 9th. I'm happy that they're doing it because it's a fun time. It's a great time to jump on the seas and worry about gifts and gilded voyages, because those are coming as well too. But yeah, I really wish that it wasn't on the 9th, because that's when Cyberpunk shows up. And If you don't know, I am a co-host for the best Sea of Thieves. I'm the best Sea of Thieves podcaster, but I'm also on the most popular Cyberpunk podcast as well, Cyberpunk Lorecast. Funny enough, probably going to have to play Cyberpunk pretty heavily because it comes out on, what is that, Thursday? Or no, when is the 9th? The 9th at like 4 p.m. is Wednesday. Yeah. So Wednesday it drops. I'm going to have to jump into Cyberpunk and play because I have until Sunday to get enough into that game to be able to be like, yeah, I know what I'm going to be talking about and can share those experiences. So that's going to be that. So the first week of Festival of Giving, I will probably be MIA on Sea of Thieves, which is kind of a bummer because that's when most people are going to be jumping into the Festival of Giving. Keelhauled Discord's there if you guys need people to help out with. I know a few people are able to get servers or a couple ships together to be able to go hunting for people to either trade gifts or give gifts to. Until we get a chance to actually see how the update goes, it's going to be hard to know how that's going to fall. But wow, Rare, could you have maybe picked it a week later when I wasn't worrying about Cyberpunk so much? Because that game is infamous in its delays, and we finally have it coming out, but it just everyone else moved. Everyone else in the gaming world decided to move away from Cyberpunk, and you're just like, nah, come at me. Who cared, Logan? We don't care about you. We don't care about how hard it's going to be for you to go actually cover both games at the same time. So I don't know how I'm going to do on this. As far as the rest of the news, I think that was it. There wasn't a whole lot else going on in the Sea of Thieves. If I missed something, feel free to let me know. But really happy to see that people are getting their hours and their actual statistics for how much they've done in Sea of Thieves. Really happy to see that. I put out a tweet back on the 2nd when we found out about the season passes, and I asked if people buy season passes for live games, and it was really close. Out of the 114 votes, 50.9% said yes, 49.1% said no. Many people were kind of saying that it really depends on a lot of what's in the season pass. I can definitely relate to that and understand where they're coming from, and I'm happy that they are able to look at that measured approach. I think everyone should be looking at that measured approach as we go into it, and just kind of accept that you don't have to buy into it just because it's the new thing. You can still kind of level up through that and still earn stuff through that free tier. Don't feel pressured to buying it right out the bat until we know more about what's actually going to be in the Plunder Pass version of it, and see if you're going to be able to progress far enough into it to justify actually purchasing it. And with that, I think that is it. Pirates, I haven't seen any new reviews for the podcast. If I haven't read yours and you've been listening diligently for it in the last couple of weeks, feel free to hit me up. Let me know, because I want to make sure that you guys are getting that recognition for your reviews. I appreciate the ones that have come in. You guys are great. You're definitely helping promote the podcast, letting people know. And if anyone's out there, you're a content creator, you're doing a general based podcast for Sea of Thieves. If you guys are listening to this, maybe consider doing some Sea of Thieves recognition. They've been out there, they've been doing the game. 15 million players that have played the game since the 3 years that it launched back in 2017. God, has it been that long? Is it 2017? No, it was 2018. Yeah, because 2017 was Switch release. 2018 was that. So yeah, we're going into the 3rd year now, and yeah, God, it's been a while. But come on, Sea of Thieves is more popular than Avengers, Marvel's Avengers, and that game is the Destiny version of Marvel. Avengers, like, that thing should be like gold. It should be beating everything else out there, but they botched it. They didn't put out the content the same. issues that Sea of Thieves had, except that Sea of Thieves, when it came out, was just lacking content. It's a lot more sound, and sure, we've had some bugs, but not nearly in the weird wonkiness that Marvel's of, well, maybe some things like Marvel's Avengers. Come on, we're better than Marvel's Avengers. We don't need to prove ourselves. You guys should talk about Sea of Thieves some more. Maybe just invite me on, and I'll come brag about it for a while. But anyway, Pirates, I've gone on long enough. I've kept you this far. I actually thought I was going to, I've recorded this a couple times. I've kind of shored things up on what I wanted to say a little bit better than I did the first time I've kind of gone through and recorded this. But I hope you guys are enjoying this. I hope you're having a great time. I'm looking forward to the Festival of Giving and getting my Gilded Voyage and then holding on to it for half a year when people stop hunting down Athena's chests and I can actually do it in peace. But other than that, we're going to find out a little bit more of how everything goes. I'll have a kind of a step-by-step goal of how I think the best way to deal with the Festival of Giving comes out when it does come out. If I am not completely stooped in cyberpunk information, at which point you're going to get a podcast that's probably going to be me referring to cyberpunk a lot because I have been wanting that game for years. And it's finally coming out, and I'm about as excited for it as I have been for Sea of Thieves when I found out Sea of Thieves was even a thing, and I created a podcast for it, except I didn't have to create a podcast for Cyberpunk. Someone already had one. I just hijacked it and became a co-host. So that's going to do it, Pirates. Thank you. I love you, and I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.
Myth is a podcast about the very soul of humanity. Join me each week as I explore stories from our history, from our mythologies, about what it means to be human. I'm your host, Tom, and Myth is available on every podcatcher anywhere. And if you're familiar with any of my other work, then you might realize that Myth is like a lorecast, but for humans. Join me each week on Myth.
In a world where solid-state electronics and vacuum tubes are still meta, people never stop loving atomic-powered everything. A chosen 500 stepped inside a subterranean vault to be spared the nuclear horror of the inevitable Great War. 25 years later, they emerge after the fallout settles to retake Appalachia. Among them, two former rivals whose blood feud will tear West Virginia apart in their epic struggle for survival. Chad, a vault bro who has a strength of 15, an intelligence of 2, and is a complete wasteland dickhead. Simon, a complicated anti-hero who chooses light and hope, but accidentally becomes a cannibal and wakes up naked and afraid with a Scorchbeast queen after a date goes terribly wrong. What? I mean, it's a wild wasteland, right? This dark humor radio drama will have you driving off the road and crawling out from under the fallout. 2 men, 1 wasteland, and so many nukes. Chad, a Fallout 76 podcast, rated R, now streaming on your holotape player podcasty thing.